The wind does not forgive on the Mongolian steppe. In the year 1470, the wind smells of ash and dried blood. The great silence of the grasslands is broken only by the sound of empires dying. We are standing in the ruins of a dream. 200 years ago, Genghis Khan forged the world into a single shape of iron and order. He created a law that stretched from the Pacific Ocean to the gates of Europe. But now the wolves are eating the carcass. The golden lineage, the sacred bloodline of the great Khan, is being hunted to extinction. It is a time of terror. If you carry the name Borjigin, if you have royal blood in your veins, you do not sleep in the same tent 2 nights in a row. You do not trust your guards. You do not trust your family. Warlords, ambitious generals, and traitorous princes are slaughtering the heirs of Genghis Khan one by one. They want the throne, they want the title, but to get it, they must wash their hands in the blood of the innocent. In the center of this slaughterhouse stands a woman who should not matter. She is 23 years old. Her name is Mandukhai. She is the widow of the most recent Khan, a man who died swiftly and suspiciously, leaving her alone in a camp surrounded by sharks. By all the laws of history, she should be a pawn. She is a woman in a world of brutal men. She is a widow in a culture that treats wives as property to be inherited. But Mandukhai is not prey. She is the most dangerous predator on the steppe because she possesses the one thing the warlords lack, a memory of what Mongolia used to be. The most powerful men in the empire begin to circle her yurt. They come with gifts that look like tributes but feel like chains. One of them is Unthinkable, a powerful warlord with thousands of cavalry under his command. He sends a message, dripping with false sweetness. He offers to marry her. He says he will protect her. He says that together they can stabilize the empire. It is a tempting offer. If she says yes, she lives. She remains a queen. She sleeps in safety. But Mandukhai knows the truth. If she marries Unthinkable or any of these pretenders, the lineage of Genghis Khan ends forever. The throne passes to a usurper. The soul of the Mongols will be sold to the highest bidder. She sits in her tent, the silk flaps whipping in the gale, and looks at the map of the fractured tribes. She makes a choice that defies sanity. She rejects the warlords. She insults their honor. She tells them that she will bow to no man unless he carries the spirit and the blood of the great Khan. The warlords are furious. They begin to mobilize. The clock is ticking. Mandukhai knows she has days, maybe weeks, before the polite proposals turn into assassins in the night. She needs an heir. She needs a legitimate Khan to rally the people, but they are all dead. The purges have been too thorough. Then a whisper reaches her. A spy, half frozen and exhausted, rides into her camp under the cover of darkness. He speaks of a rumor in the northern wastes. He says there is one left, one boy. The grandson of a former Khan, hidden away by loyal servants, living in squalor to avoid the knives of the hunters. His name is Batumunkh. Mandukhai does not hesitate. She mounts her horse. She takes her personal guard, men who have sworn to die for her, and rides into the storm. They ride for days, pushing their horses to the breaking point, crossing territory controlled by enemies who would flay them alive if they were caught. And when she finally finds him, the sight breaks her heart. This is the heir to the world? This is the last hope of the Mongol Empire? Batumunkh is 7 years old. He is not living like a prince. He is living like a stray dog. He is dressed in rags, stiff with grease. He is covered in sores and boils from malnutrition. He is terrified, silent, and small. He looks at this beautiful armored woman with eyes that have seen too much death. Mandukhai drops to her knees in the dirt. She does not see a beggar. She sees a king. She takes off her silk cloak and wraps it around his shivering shoulders. She lifts him onto her saddle. In that moment, the destiny of Asia shifts. She is no longer just a widow. She is a mother to a dynasty. She rides back to the royal camp, the boy clutching her waist, and she calls a chaotic assembly of the tribes. The warlords are there, smirking, expecting her to surrender, expecting her to pick a husband from among them. Instead, Mandukhai pushes the 7-year-old boy forward. He is washed now, dressed in the robes of his ancestors, but he is still a child. The assembly goes silent. Mandukhai draws her sword. Her voice rings out across the plains, sharp and clear as a bell. She declares that this boy is the Daylight Khan. She declares that she, Mandukhai, will rule as his regent, and she declares that anyone who wishes to harm him will have to cut through her first. The insult hits the warlords like a physical blow. A woman? Ruling through a sick child? It is a joke. It is a blasphemy. The meeting dissolves in shouting and threats. The powerful Oirat tribes in the west, the ancient rivals of the Mongols, hear the news and laugh. They see a broken empire led by a girl and a baby. They smell blood. They begin to gather their armies, sharpening their sabers, preparing to wipe the golden lineage off the face of the earth once and for all. Mandukhai looks at the horizon, sees the dust rising from the enemy columns, and knows the time for talking is over. The years that follow are not recorded in ink, but in scar tissue. Mandukhai and the boy Khan spend their lives in the saddle. They are nomads in the truest sense, never staying in one place, always moving, always watching the horizon. Mandukhai becomes a master of guerrilla warfare. She cannot defeat the massive armies of the Oirats in a pitched battle, not yet. So she stings them, she raids their supply lines, she ambushes their scouts, she uses the vastness of the steppe as a weapon, dragging her enemies into the deep desert until they are exhausted, then striking them when they sleep. But her most important battle is not against the Oirats. It is for the soul of the boy, Batumunkh. She is raising him in a crucible of violence. She teaches him how to read the clouds for weather. She teaches him how to string a composite bow that requires 100 pounds of force. She teaches him the history of his grandfather, showing him the ruined cities and the ancient monuments, reminding him that he is not a fugitive. He is a landlord returning to his property. There's a tenderness here, too. At night, by the fire, she combs the lice from his hair. She cooks his food to ensure it isn't poisoned. She guards his sleep, sword across her lap. A bond forms between them that is deeper than blood, deeper than friendship. They are two people against the entire world. As the years grind on, the boy begins to change. The sickly child vanishes. In his place stands a young man, strong, broad-shouldered, intelligent. The boils heal, replaced by the calluses of a warrior. The people begin to whisper. They see him riding at the front of the column, and they see the ghost of Genghis Khan. Loyalty begins to trickle back. Tribes that had abandoned the golden lineage start to return, bringing horses and soldiers. The army of the Daylight Khan grows, but with his manhood comes a new, terrifying complication. Batumunkh turns 18. He is no longer a child. He is a Khan in full, and by the laws of the steppe, a Khan needs a wife. The political sharks begin to circle again. The warlords who once tried to kill him now try to seduce him. They offer their daughters. They offer alliances. They want to marry into the bloodline to control him. Mandukhai watches this with cold dread. She knows that a foreign wife could whisper poison in his ear. A wife from a rival tribe could undo 18 years of work in a single night. And then there is the issue of Mandukhai herself. She is still the regent, but if he marries, she loses her power. She becomes the dowager, the old relic to be pushed aside. The tension in the camp is palpable. Everyone is waiting to see who the young Khan will choose. Mandukhai makes a decision that shocks the world even more than her first one. She walks into the Khan's tent. She is older now, in her 30s, her face weathered by the wind and the sun, but she's still fierce, still beautiful, in the way a tiger is beautiful. She proposes a solution that is technically legal under Mongol law, but socially explosive. She invokes the ancient custom of levirate marriage, where a widow marries the male heir to keep the property in the family. She proposes that she, the woman who raised him, the woman who wiped his nose and taught him to kill, should become his wife. It is a gamble that could destroy them. It could be seen as grotesque. It could be seen as a desperate power grab. Batumunkh looks at her. He does not see an old woman. He sees the only person who never betrayed him. He sees his partner. He accepts. The wedding is simple, but the message is thunderous. The golden lineage is a closed circle, no outsiders allowed. Mandukhai is now the Khatun, the empress. They are a dual monarchy, a powerhouse of political and military will. But the enemies of the Mongols do not send wedding gifts. They send an invasion force. The Oirat tribes, realizing their window of opportunity is closing, launch a total war. They gather every banner, every spear. They are coming to crush this incestuous alliance before it can solidify control over the empire. Intelligence reports scream of a massive host moving toward the royal camp. It is an army designed for extermination. Batumunkh orders the mobilization. The horns blow, the drums beat. But in the royal tent, there is a secret. Mandukhai is sick. She is pale. She grips her stomach in pain. It is not illness. It is life. The empress is pregnant. The generals are horrified. They beg her to retreat. They tell her to go to the mountains, to hide in a fortress until the child is born. They say a pregnant woman has no place on a killing field. Mandukhai looks at her husband. She looks at the panic in the eyes of her soldiers. She knows the Mongol psychology. They follow strength. If the queen runs, the morale breaks. If the morale breaks, the line breaks. If the line breaks, the history of her people ends. She tightens her belt around her swollen belly. She orders her servants to help her into her heavy armor. She struggles to breathe against the weight of the iron lamellae. She winces as she climbs onto her horse. She rides out to the front of the formation, ignoring the pain, ignoring the fear. She draws her saber. She will fight. The battlefield is a nightmare of noise and confusion. The ground shakes under the hooves of 40,000 horses. The air is thick with the whistle of arrows, the screams of men, and the metallic ring of steel clashing against steel. The Oirat army hits the Mongol line like a sledgehammer. They are ferocious. They push the center of the Mongol formation back, foot by foot. Batumunkh is fighting on the right flank, trying to turn the tide, but he is cut off. The center must hold. Mandukhai is in the center. She is not commanding from the rear. She is in the melee. She parries a spear thrust, slashes at an enemy horseman, shouting orders to her standard bearers to hold the line. Every movement is torture. The adrenaline of battle is warring with the biological imperative of birth. Suddenly, a pain rips through her body that is sharper than any arrow. It brings her forward over the neck of her horse. She gasps, vision blurring. The contractions are coming hard and fast. The stress of the combat has triggered labor. Her personal guards, battle-hardened killers who have seen everything, realize what is happening. They scream for a defensive circle. Shields! Shields around the Khatoon! In the middle of a raging battle, a strange island of stillness forms. The guards lock their shields together, creating a small, dark wall of wood and leather. Inside, Mandukhai slides off her horse, collapsing onto the trampled grass. The dirt is wet with mud and blood. The sounds of the battle are deafening just inches away. She can hear the Oirat axes splintering the shields of her protectors. She can hear the grunts of effort as her men die to keep the circle closed. She knows she has minutes. If the circle breaks, she and the child die under the hooves of the enemy cavalry. She bites down on a piece of leather strap to stifle her screams. She pushes with the same ferocity she used to keep the Empire alive. And there, under the gray sky, amidst the slaughter, a cry rings out. A baby, then another. Twins, 2 boys, born into the blood and dust of war. The nursemaid, terrified, wraps them quickly in silk and fur. Mandukhai is gasping for air, her face white as a sheet, and sweat and blood mixing on her forehead. Her body is shattered. Any other human being would pass out. Any other woman would be carried away on a stretcher. But Mandukhai hears the sound of the enemy breaking through. The Oirats have seen the banner dip. They think the queen is dead. They are surging forward, smelling victory. Mandukhai makes a choice that transcends history and enters the realm of myth. She grabs the mane of her horse. She pulls herself up. Her legs are trembling. She's bleeding. She's exhausted beyond words. But she climbs back into the saddle. She takes her helmet and jams it back onto her head. She draws her sword. She kicks her horse forward, bursting out of the shield wall like a demon rising from the grave. The Oirat soldiers stop. They stare. They saw her go down. They thought it was over. And now she towers over them, sword raised, screaming a war cry that chills their blood. For the Khan! The sight of the invincible witch queen, the woman who cannot be killed, electrifies the Mongol army. A roar goes up from the throats of 10,000 men. They surge forward with a renewed, fanatical fury. They are not fighting for land anymore. They are fighting for her. The Oirat line crumples. Panic spreads like wildfire. She cannot die, they scream. Run! The retreat turns into a rout. The Mongols chase them down for miles, shattering the power of the Oirats for a generation. When the sun sets, the field belongs to Mandukhai. She rides back to the tent where her twin sons are sleeping. She does not collapse until she is sure they are safe. Mandukhai the Wise did not just save a battle that day. She saved a civilization. She went on to have 7 sons and 3 daughters with Batumunkh. Together, they reunited the Mongols. They reestablished the laws of Genghis Khan. They brought peace to the steppes for the first time in a century. Historians often write about kings and conquerors, but in the secret heart of Mongolia, they know the truth. The empire wasn't saved by a man with a sword. It was saved by a mother who refused to let her family die. Her legacy is written in the DNA of the nation. She was the last true warrior of the steppe, the queen who gave birth on the battlefield and rose up to finish the war.